Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it. Technology
increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovese. I want to thank you for joining us today, hopefully live, that you're joining us as we go live here every single week, every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, because, live is where it's at. Live is where you get your questions answered. It's where you get to connect with the audience members. You get to connect with our guests and ask questions, get them answered, because that could be the close in the knowledge gap that you have that help bring you to another level. And if you can't make it live, we say go to masterconnector.show and you can plan ahead. You can see who we have coming up months down the road. And that way, if there is somebody you absolutely have to see live because you got a question or it's something that you need to know about, you can put it in your calendar. That way, make sure you join us that day. And of course, you can always catch the replays as they go out on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else in the world where you listen to your favorite podcasts. And listen, today's show is brought to you by Russ Hedge. Russ Hedge has over 30 years of sales and marketing experience in multiple industries. He can help you be successful in your business by helping you truly connect, transform your business, connect to new customers. RussHedge.com. Thank you, Russ. And today we happen to have a great episode. Steve always brings the cream of the crop in terms of guests. I don't know how he finds these people, honestly. I know he is the master connector, and I guess that's why, but he comes up with the best guests that I have ever seen across any shows. And so today is no different. We're going to be talking about creating a successful lifetime. It talks about change. I guess I'm going to talk about change today. The one thing that made me think of change is I remember when I was a younger guy, and as soon as I would get something down, as soon as I would learn something, I'd be like, okay, if nothing changes, I'll be okay. And wouldn't you know it, life happens and something changes and throws all my plans out the window. Has that ever happened to you guys? Well, we're going to talk about some of that today as we get into it with our guests. But listen, we're all connectors here, but there's only one master connector. So let's bring him on, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Robbie G? How you doing, bud?
Man, doing good.
Great to have you. Great to be on here. And listen, it's funny. You said nothing changes. My mom always says, when nothing changes, nothing changes. So you got to always just keep going and growing. Yeah, for
Mom
sure.
Wisdom.
That's mom has a lot of wisdom. So
yeah.
Appreciate you. Yeah. What's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And I am excited, as usual, to be on with you all. And obviously, if you're in the show with us, we don't know you're on unless you're in the comments. So get in the comments, connect with each other. It is the Master Connector Show. So we want you, and yeah, put your questions in the comment section as well. It's gonna be we love this as being a very interactive show. So definitely we want you as part of the show. We believe in LinkedIn participants, not necessarily LinkedIn lurkers. So get in the comments. We'd love to see you. but. I want to ask a question to ponder on, right? What does it mean to have a successful lifetime? And it's an interesting twist on the word successful lifetime. And, there's so many ways we can go with this, and we're going to dig into it with our guests. But, in my opinion, successful lifetime is not built by one big moment, right? I recently just got on a TEDx stage. That's a big moment, but that's not how it starts, or that's not how it happens. It happens through a series of things, sometimes wins, sometimes losses, right? I love what John Maxwell says, which is you're either winning or you're learning, and it's learning along the way and adjusting and adapting. And I think I did a post recently, and just honoring my mom, and I got a chance to see her again this past weekend. And amazing woman, right? She got married at 18 just to get out of her house, sort of a toxic, upbringing. Not that her mom, my grandma, was great, but had some growing to do, and so she wanted to leave the house and got married at 18, and probably a little early for even at that time, in terms of the era. but she got out and barely high school educated, but went on to becoming incredible and the things she's accomplished. And she pioneered, help in the AIDS area. And she was a director of a large facility in Westchester County, New York, for homeless, drug addicted AIDS victims, and all sorts of other things that she's accomplished, and going on to get not only a bachelor's degree, but a master's degree in social work, and has a successful social working practice. And she was an adjunct professor. I mean, crazy, from this woman that was a divorced single mom raising 3 kids in the Bronx, a poor girl from the Bronx, to who she is today. And again, a series of events to who she is today. And she still amazes me to this day. And the show's not going to be about my mom, although I have pay a lot of homage to her, and she's amazing. But it's about you. I don't want this show to be about anyone but you. And I want you, as you hear some of this stuff, to think about yourself. And if you don't feel like you have a successful life, a life, or you're building a successful lifetime, realize that you can do it too. That there's tools, there's things that you have access to, and hopefully some of the information we're going to share with you today, and some of the things that our guest Nina is going to talk about, that will definitely help you and make an impact. Because ultimately, that, to me and Rob, that's the goal of our show. Our goal of our show, our mission, is to be the light, uplift, inspire, and encourage. Success is great, but to me, success things, yes, they're awesome, but it's not what true success is to me. It's how many people are better off because you were here. And so it's all about impact. And so I believe that this show is really going to impact you in a major way. So if you're ready for us to introduce our incredible guest, type in the comments. Let's go. And Robbie G, I'll pass it to you, buddy.
All right, let's go. Nina Sossamon-Pogue has built an extraordinary life, not by chasing one definition of success, but by redefining it across every chapter. From USA Gymnastics national team member to Emmy-winning news anchor to tech executive during rapid growth, and now a sought-after keynote speaker and author, Nina knows what it takes to evolve and thrive. She blends real-life experience with neuroscience and behavioral psychology to help high achievers move from simply performing to truly living well. Her message is powerful. Success isn't a moment. It's a lifelong strategy built on resilience, reinvention, and owning your full story. Please welcome to the show, Nina Sossamon-Pogue. What's up, Nina?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here.
It is an honor to have you on, big time, for sure. Very, very blessed, for sure. So, yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've been anticipating this for a while, so excited. Well, let's dig right into it, Nina. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got a little delay going on.
That's okay. I was going to tell you, I love the post. I didn't want to interrupt, but I love the post on your mom, by the way. And I love that you talked about her, because it was just, it's kind of a tough act to follow the mom story. She seems pretty friggin' amazing. Well, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's funny, I probably just touched on it in terms of what she's accomplished. It's amazing, but I appreciate that big time.
Yeah.
We have some amazing people in our community. Obviously, I want to speak about Yolanda, who is an incredible member of our community. She's on here every week. I think she only missed one in I want to say 5 or 6 years. She's amazing. Great to have Kim on here with us as well. And just everyone else that's watching, just get in the comments so we know you're on here. We can acknowledge you and shout you out. But let's get into it, Nina. Ready? So we want to talk about success. To me, again, success can be defined in many ways. But so we want to talk about success. So type in community hashtag success in the comments. So how do you shift from chasing success to redefining it across different chapters of your life, like Rob mentioned in your bio?
Yeah. And I'm thrilled to be here and talk about this, because we can talk about success, and my bio makes it sound like I've done all these amazing things. What you don't see in that bio are all the pitfalls and the low moments and the things that went wrong. None of it was planned. It was just how I adapted and changed as the world around me changed. And so when I talk to folks about what it feels like to have a successful lifetime, everybody's idea of success is different. And I truly believe our concepts of success changes through the chapters of our lives. Like when my kids were young, it was about providing for them, being a good mom, doing all those things, and then now my kids are out and adulting and having their own success. So my success feels different for what I want success to feel like. But one of most telling questions to start this conversation is picture somebody. If I said to you, hey, what does success look like? In your head, you have an image of what success looks like. And sometimes it's like boats or big houses or fancy cars or big vacations. And that's how we think about success. But if I had the same sentence to you and said, hey, picture a successful lifetime, that hits differently. You don't see the same things. You see a very different concept in your head. And sometimes it's really hard to even picture what that looks like. So the idea of a successful lifetime is, one, defining what you want your lifetime to look like, what you do, as you said, want to leave behind, the people around you and the people that you affect and are interacting with, the work that you do. And then the concept of who you feel and like in your core, in your being, what feels like success for you. And it's different for all of us. I have great friends who have had huge success, and we all feel very differently about what success is. I don't have a big fancy house and fancy cars, but I was able to send my kids to any college they wanted to, and I'm able to travel. Like, my idea of success was different than others. And I have other friends who, like, the number that they have in the bank is so important to them. You know, when I was working in tech, I had a couple of sales guys, and they were like, gotta, have this number so my money makes money down the road. And that was never a thing for me. My success was never tied to a number. So I love all these guys. I love all the concepts of success, but you will never feel successful until you decide what your concept of success is.
So let me jump in there, Nina, because, I think what you're talking about here is when we talk about success, and the first thing that comes into most people's minds is houses, cars, money, boats, vacations around the world, whatever. And, a lot of that is because of the way society is. Everybody goes out every day to make a living, right? So money is always, at least subconsciously, on our mind because we got to go out there and make it. But when you talk to people who are towards the end of their lives, they have a very different definition of success, like you talked about. So how does somebody at the beginning of life, 20s, say, beginning of their adult life, how can they make sure they have a successful lifetime if it's really not about money?
And that is, I have 3 kids in their 20s. We have this conversation often. So it's kind of fun. So I have a son who's a doctor. I have a daughter who works in AI in New York. And I have another son who's in the Air Force. They're all very different. Their ideas of success are all very different. And when I talk to young people, or if I'm at a college or a university speaking, your idea of success will change over time, as I mentioned. But really, when in that stage of your life, in your 20s, when you're still trying to figure out exactly who you are and what success will look like, it comes to figuring out what your values are and what you value. Because if your value, like, that stays your North Star, like who you want to be, the type of person you want to be, and the type of way in which you see success. If you know what you're aiming for, you can get there. I always say, if you want to get to you're at point A and you want to get to point B, imagine point B and then reverse engineer it. But along the way, life starts lifing at you, and you're going to keep adapting and growing, but you're still going towards your own version of point B. If you don't know where you're going, life will just happen to you and you will not end up any place you want to be. So you have to at least know where you're headed and what makes you come alive and what you love to do. For me, I spent a lot of time thinking about this throughout my life. And now, in my 50s, when I can look back on the crazy life I've had and the very successful high highs and low lows, I can look at it and go, the constant in my life is I'm everybody's cheerleader. I'm pulling for everybody. I really get a lot of happiness and warmth and value, feeling of value out of helping other people become successful. And that's always been, even when I was a gymnast. So I was on the U.S. team with Mary Lou Retton back in the day. And when I was a gymnast, I was the first year she won USA championships, I was voted Miss Congeniality at the USA championships. I mean, I was the one always rooting for other people. And same thing when I was on, TV, I was Charleston's favorite news anchor. I was always really out there to make sure everybody else was having a good experience. And that's carried through my life, whether I was in TV or tech. And it really is part of who I am. So each of us have to figure out what it is that makes them tick.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Love that. It's great. And Yolanda, I love what she just said here, which is success looks different for each individual because we're all working with different values and experiences. Well said. She also said this, Yolanda, you're cranking today. You how you shape your version of making it, which is true too as well. I heard it said once recently, think about your dash. When you on your tombstone at the end of your life, what do you want? What happened in the dash, right? Between the time you were put on this earth and the time when you leave. Also, an exercise that is interesting is create your obituary, if you will, or your eulogy. Think about your eulogy. What is somebody saying? And it's probably not going to be, well, he or she had, these 2 really big homes that they owned, and they're not going to say that. It's really more about the impact, I believe. A bit, again, to your point, Nina, it's got to be what is meaningful for you.
Right.
But ultimately, when it's all said and done, listen, what's going to be more important, I believe, is how many people you touch. But I do want to keep the ball rolling here. And, one of the things you touched on before is the challenges. We all go through it. You said lifes. I love that expression. I've been hearing that a lot lately in the last, I don't know, maybe a few months. It's true. And so resilience is incredibly important through those life challenges, right? So let's talk about community. Type in hashtag resilience. And so here's the question for you, Nina. What does it actually look like to build resilience as a skill and not just rely on it as a trait?
This is my wheelhouse, and I've spent a lot of years really digging into this and trying to figure out how we can do that. Because in my head, if resilience is a skill, if resilience something we build over time, if it's like a muscle we build, then being an athlete, I feel like we should be able to train it. So I wanted an elegant, repeatable process. Like, how do we do that? How do we build that muscle over and over again and get stronger without, life knocking us back too far? So it's a mix of, as you said in my intro, the way we're wired, our neurology, some cognitive behavior therapy. It's a lot of stoicism. I'm a big fan of Marcus Aurelius. I know you guys are too, and the work that you do in The Obstacle is the Way. So when I think about how we look at our lifetime and what makes us who we are, I often begin and think about, when you have a tree, think about a giant oak tree. If you've ever seen a beautiful giant oak tree, okay? At some point, there's one here in Charleston. It's called the Angel Oak, and it's more than 400 years old. And so when you walk up to a giant tree like that, I'm always amazed, and something goes through my brain and thinks, okay, at some point, this giant tree, centuries ago, was an acorn in that field with probably hundreds or thousands of other acorns. How did that one acorn become this, as opposed to all the other ones? Was it special, and it was how it adapted. So it kept digging down and getting to the water when it needed to, and bending its branches to find the sunlight. And it survived fires and floods and wars. I mean, probably the Civil War here in Charleston. Think about all that tree has seen. Crazy. So I think about us as humans, and I think we're all born as an acorn. We have certain DNA and challenges, and where you're born and the year you're born, your parents, there's a lot of stuff that just comes with. You're going to be an oak tree, or you're going to be something, you're going to be an acorn. You have certain skills and certain limitations right there. But how you adapt and grow through life, through the challenges, is how you become the long-standing, continually adapting thing in the universe, like in your own world. So one of the things I love to do, and to start with, I think about this as a person. And so if you're listening, you're thinking about, how does this work with a person? So when you were born, I do this thing called your reverse resume. So if you take a timeline and draw your timeline on a piece of paper, I always say do 1 to 100, like 10 little dots, and then start. And like above the line, put all of the accomplishments you've had, like won the 5th grade spelling bee or whatever. It's like all the good stuff in the top, and then got the job, graduated from something, got the job, did the thing, bought the house, married the girl, whatever, across the top, had the kids. So you put your accomplishments and any awards and stuff across the top of that line, and then on about the date, where it was, and then below that line, I say, now go through and think about all the tough times you went. Maybe you were bullied in high school. Maybe you were in a car accident. Maybe you were in injured or bad diagnosis, or lost a loved one, or difficult things we went through. Failed a class, or didn't get the job, or got fired, or divorced. Like all that goes below the line on about when it happened, and First, I tell folks, you see all that stuff below the line? That's what made you who you are, not the big wins, the stuff down there. And then also I have them connect the dots and go, look, this is life, because you're going up and down and up and down and up and down. Like every time you get back up over that line, you're becoming more resilient. You're learning, and every time you're back up over that line, you're becoming more resilient. You're getting stronger. And so the idea that, first we have to look at what does make you stronger, the things you do wrong. We don't learn anything from what we do right. I remember I was a gymnast, so all day long, every day, my entire childhood, I moved away from home at 13, were just coaches telling me what I was doing wrong and what to fix. So, that's how you get better. So I think of life like that too. You have to be able to accept that criticism. But anyway, the framework that I came up with is 4 areas. So I do the timeline thinking first to get people thinking about where does this thing that you're challenged with fit in your timeline. And then I say isolate it. It's TIPS, T-I-P-S. So put it on that timeline and then isolate it. And I have people draw a line on that same piece of paper before and after it. So you can't think about what happened before, not the woulda, shoulda, couldas, all that stuff over there. That's where depression lives. We can't send it over there. And then we can't spend a lot of time over in the what ifs and the doomsday scenarios afterwards. That's where anxiety lives. Depression's in the past, anxiety's in the future. So we have this moment right here. So that's the isolate piece. What are we exactly dealing with? And what can we do in this moment? And then the P and the tips is people. So that is who is in your world that can help. And sometimes I have people turn the page over and go, okay, what's helping and hurting? Like on the back side of your paper, right? Here's people who are helping and here's people who are hurting. Everybody fits in one of 2 categories. And sometimes even the people we love the most are not exactly helping. So we have to look at that and go, okay, I need to figure out who that is. And then when you see who's helping, I always say, flip your page back over and in the circle, draw a circle around this moment that you're having and say, who's helping, and pull some people inside your circle, because it feels really alone when you're going through tough times or you're trying to figure out what's the next best move. So figure out who's helping and hurting, pull in a few people. And if there's nobody in there, that's a red flag, because we all need people to have success. You're the friggin' master connector. It is you definitely know that. So pull in the people and connect to the right people, and pull in people who can help you, because those who have big success through all of the research, people who have big success don't go it alone. I mean, even elite athletes have coaches, CEOs have groups they get together with, and experts have masterminds. I mean, you need other humans to bounce ideas off of and to elevate your ideas. And then the last S is story. Like, what's the story we're telling ourselves in these moments? So when you're looking to build a successful lifetime or build from a down and go forward, what's the story you're telling you? Is this everything's ruined? What's the language in your head? This is never going to work. Everything's ruined. Those really dangerous negative language. Or is it, this is a challenge and I haven't figured this out yet? Some of that language that gives you hope and forward motion. So working through that every time there's a down and knowing, you just keep going back up over that line. And sometimes I'll have to circle that down for somebody on their timeline and go, okay, you see that? There are moments when we thought like life was never going to be better again. I've had some of those where, how do I ever get out of this? I've been fired. I've failed. I've been divorced. I've been through all the things. Not all the things. I've been through many difficult things. Sure. But in those moments, when we feel like, I don't know how we can ever see happiness or figure out on the other side of it, you can look at that timeline and go, I've figured it out every other time and I will this time too. It's okay to not be okay. One of my favorite sayings. It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way.
Yeah. And I think, Nina, a lot of times people think those, sometimes some hits are bigger than others, and they feel like I've made all this progress, and they take this hit and they go, it must not just be in the cards for me. Like, what do you say to somebody like that?
There's nobody, life keeps lifing. There's nobody that got a pass. Everybody is going through challenges in their lives. Everybody's gone through tough stuff. And the people who have the biggest success are usually the ones who've gone through some of the hardest things. Yeah. So if you're going through a tough one, thank you, universe. I'm going to be stronger on the other side of this, which is not a thing you can, at the moment you feel like you can say, but it does change the way you look at it when you go, oh, this is the next big thing that I've got to, figure out how to move forward from. There's always a way forward. There's always a way forward.
I just want to acknowledge real quick, Kim says, standing one more time, then you fall is the key, which I appreciate. We did a question. Now we asked our community to put questions in here, and we're digging in deep on this resilience thing. But Yolanda had asked, it looked like, is resilience a skill? And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
So there's a lot of debate and a lot of discussion around this. Some people will argue some people are born more resilient than others, which I think it's true. I think some people are kind of born with a stiffer resolve. However, resilience can be learned and grow through time. So the definition, and this is for resilience for humans. I'm not talking about resilient strains of bacteria or resilience in nature or, that type, but in humans, we are all born, and some people are born a little tougher. I think some people have, a more emotional, they get injured more easily. I mean, it's harder for them to be resilient, but it is something we can learn and grow. Most of the research does show that. And the definition of resilience that I use is your ability to adapt, to learn, grow stronger, and adapt in a positive way to whatever happens in your life. So it's your ability to learn, grow stronger, and adapt in a positive way to whatever happens in your life. And that that's from the center of resilience. And that's the one I really lean into. And I always say, adapt in a positive way is the key, because like the tree, you don't get a choice of what's like, you have to keep adapting and bending and growing because the world around us is going to continue to change. I mean, now we have AI and we have the world's so different for my kids in their 20s than it was when I was in a career in my 20s. Like the world is just different. So how we adapt and change to the world changing around us and the things that personally happen to us is really key. And that's where that framework comes in. Put it in your timeline, isolate it, who's in it with you, craft that story.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much more to cover, but we only have limited time here. Reinvention is what I want to talk about real quick, and we're bringing it home. We're literally 3 minutes away from the end of the show, so keep it kind of on the shorter side if you could. But so hashtag community reinvention. How do you know when it's time to reinvent yourself versus pushing through the tough times?
Yeah, that's a real personal conflict that a lot of us get into. I had some advice that I followed that worked really well, and I'll tell you quickly. Someone said, go back and look at your calendar, because everything's usually digital, or you have a calendar now. Look at your calendar for the last 3 months and look at what lit you up and felt good and what you didn't like doing. Circle it, color code it. Look at where you felt like you were moving forward in a life that felt good to you. And where you didn't, like take a red one and go, I hated doing this, give me an Excel spreadsheet, red. So when you look at that, it will show you, what's working, what's not, and maybe a path where you can adjust to a path in the future. But if you've got a lot of red on there, you get one life and no one's coming to change it for you. So if you have, if you're in a really unhappy place, it is up to you to figure out that next move and move the needle in one direction or the other.
No doubt. That's great. Love it. Well, again, amazing. I mean, we barely even touched on 3 out of 6 questions we had, but you gave us such incredible content. And my mom, love mom, right? She's got a lot of wisdom, and she's like, I love your show. You need to let your guests talk more. So I think we did that today. We let you talk, which is good, because it's not about us. It's about our guest, and we want to highlight and we want to learn from you, and we know what we know is in our own heads. So I want to know what you have to say. So we appreciate you. So I guess final words, any takeaways, what's the best way for community to reach you? Anything, any final thoughts? What would you like to leave our audience with?
Well, first, thanks so much, Steve. And I was kind of watching to see when you were jumping in, so I hope I didn't take over too much.
You're
but
good.
I appreciate the time and the chance to share some of this stuff. It's really not about me. It's really about your audience. And I hope that they've taken away something that helps them. If you do have somebody who's in a really tough spot, my first book, This Is Not the End, Strategies to Get You Through the Worst Chapters of Your Life, is really helpful if you're in a very dark place or if you're in a difficult spot. And then if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Nina Speaks. And you can find me if you have events, or I do a lot of keynote speaking and a lot of work in the corporate space. And I'd be happy to work with any of your folks in that way. And they can find me through my LinkedIn page or through Instagram or Facebook. And hey, congrats to you on the TED Talk too. I did watch it. It was great, Steve.
Thank you. Wow. I
so
appreciate
good.
that. Thank you. That's an honor that you like that. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was an honor. But speaking of honors, it's an honor to have you on here with us. And I'm going to have you go into the green room as we close down the show. But I hope you could stay a couple minutes in the green room so we could say hello and goodbye before you head out. But we appreciate you big time. Make sure to connect with Nina for sure. Thank you, Nina, again. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. Awesome. Whew. Wow. All right. Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to top that one. Rob says we keep topping it every week, but episode 259 coming up on May 6th. Help others overcome jerk behaviors with Richard Salon. Salon? I think it might be pronounced Salon. Apologies, Rich. That's bad. But anyway, I'm getting better and better every day. But yeah, help others overcome jerk behaviors. It's going to be a great show. I don't know if it's going to top today's show, but it's amazing. And if you haven't checked it out, check out Rob's book, Don't Fear the Brand. I just got to say, unbelievable book. You guys know me. I'm not a huge book reader, but I actually read his book because it wasn't available at the time on Audible. I don't know if it's going to be on Audible yet. But anyway, I actually read it, so it was awesome. If you are interested, go to masterconnector.show to learn more about some of the up-and-coming people coming on, guests coming on. And then if you're interested in being a sponsor like Rush Hedge, you could see that, as well as also see what it takes to be a guest on our show. We do have pretty strong parameters. You got to be pretty amazing. I'm sure you are amazing, okay? But there's certain things we look for. We look for a successful lifetime to have you on our show, okay? But I want to close with a quick story. Ursula Burns started as an intern at Xerox and spent years navigating environments where she was often underestimated, overlooked, and by staying grounded in who she was, speaking up when it mattered, and continuously expanding her capabilities, she became the first Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company. Listen, let her journey remind you that when you stop shrinking and start owning your space, you don't just rise, you become a beacon of light for others to see what's possible. So folks, let's remember, let's shine our light. God bless. We'll see you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.